On the outskirts of Ashford Hollow stood a house no one spoke of directly, though it was never far from people's minds. It was not abandoned, though the windows were dark and the yard wild. It was not condemned, though the roof sagged and ivy strangled its walls. The house was waiting. Marjorie Wren inherited it from an uncle she barely remembered. She had only visited once as a child and recalled little beyond a sense of unease. Rooms that smelled faintly of mildew and something sweeter, almost metallic. Floors that creaked like whispering voices, and her uncle's pale gray eyes that never seemed to blink enough. Now, 30 years later, she returned. The first night, she told herself the noises were natural. The sigh of wind in the chimney, the groan of settling wood, the patter of rodents in the walls. Yet she could not sleep. A draft seemed to come from nowhere, cold fingers brushing her skin. When she turned on the lamp, the light flickered, as though something had passed before it. By morning, she resolved to explore. Dust lay thick on every surface. Doors stuck to their frames as if reluctant to be opened. And in one narrow corridor, she found something she did not remember from her childhood. A door half hidden behind an armoire. It opened into a crawl space, narrow and dark. She might have ignored it, had she not noticed the deep scratches along the frame, like fingernails dragging furrows into the wood. Inside, the air was damp and carried the faint, sour reek of rot. She shone her flashlight in, expecting old furniture or boxes. Instead, she saw walls that pulsed. Not literally, she told herself. It must have been her breath stirring the cobwebs, her light playing tricks on plaster. But the impression remained, like a living thing pressed just beneath the surface, shifting slightly, waiting. She closed the door. She moved the armoire back. She told herself she had imagined it. That night, the house began to breathe. Not loudly, just the faintest rhythm beneath the quiet. An inhalation and exhalation that did not match her own. She pressed her ear to the wall, heart hammering, and thought she heard faint scratching, as though something on the other side longed to get out. By the third night, she heard it whisper. Not words exactly, more the shape of words, the rise and fall of syllables without sound. She dreamed of her uncle, pale and hollow-eyed, standing in the crawl space. His lips moved, and though she could not hear them, she knew the words. You let it in. When she woke, the crawlspace door was ajar. She nailed it shut. The next day, she found the nails on the floor, neatly stacked. She did not sleep that night. She sat in the living room with all the lamps lit, clutching her phone. At some point she must have dozed, for she woke to darkness. Every bulb had gone out. Something moved in the hallway. It was not loud, only a faint dragging, like bare feet across old wood. She froze. The sound drew nearer, and then she saw it. Not clearly, not at first. A pale shape in the doorway, taller than a man, its limbs too long, its head tilted at a broken angle. Its skin seemed the same color as the walls, as if it had been pressed against them for years, slowly leaching into them. It had no eyes, yet she felt its gaze burning into her. She ran, out the front door, down the overgrown path, into the road. Neighbors found her at dawn, shaking, unable to speak. When the police entered the house, they found nothing unusual. Dust, cobwebs, a nailed-shut crawlspace. They laughed about it, called her hysterical. But one officer, while inspecting the crawlspace, leaned in too close. Later, he told his partner he thought he heard breathing from the plaster. He laughed it off, embarrassed. 2 weeks later, he vanished. His wife swore she heard whispering in the walls before he disappeared. The house still stands. The neighbors still cross the street to avoid it. And sometimes, on still nights, when the wind dies, they swear they hear it. The faint exhale of the pale one in the walls, patient as hunger, waiting for someone to let it out again. It was not the police who returned first. It was a man named Julian Corbett, a freelance archivist who specialized in haunted histories. He had written books about cursed mines, hospitals abandoned mid-surgery, and the asylum where the doctors left without explaining why. Julian's publisher sent him to Ashford Hollow after hearing whispers about the Wren house, the inheritance, the woman fleeing in terror, the missing officer. "You'll get great material," they promised. "Small-town superstition, family madness. Your readers love this stuff." Julian was skeptical. He always was. He had spent his career documenting ghost stories, not believing them. The dead, in his experience, stayed dead. People, however, invented wonders and horrors alike. He arrived in late October, just as the leaves turned brittle and the days shortened. Locals warned him off. They didn't try to scare him. They simply wouldn't meet his eyes. An old man at the diner muttered, "That house doesn't keep its own secrets anymore." Julian set up camp inside. He brought cameras, recorders, even motion sensors. He was methodical, almost smug. "If there's something here," he said into his handheld recorder, "it will reveal itself to me in measurable ways." For 2 nights, nothing happened. Dust, creaks, and distant traffic. He began drafting his outline, already framing Marjorie as an unreliable narrator. On the 3rd night, his recorder picked up something he hadn't heard in the room itself. A faint breath, long and low, timed between his own inhalations. Julian replayed it over and over, trying to debunk it. But every time, his skin prickled. The next night, he placed a microphone inside the crawl space. Hours later, the audio spiked. Not a breath this time, but whispering. Dozens of voices layered on top of one another, soft and wet, as though spoken through damp cloth. He slowed the tape. Beneath the chaos, he thought he heard a word repeated. Hollow, hollow, hollow. Julian didn't sleep. His hands shook as he reviewed the files. The air in the house seemed heavier, harder to breathe. The walls sweated moisture, staining his sleeves when he brushed against them. On the 5th night, his cameras captured it. At 3:12 a.m., the hallway lens showed something pale sliding along the wall. Not walking, sliding, as if its body had no weight. It stretched impossibly tall, neck bent like a question mark, arms grazing the floor. Its face was featureless except for the faint shadow of an open mouth, gaping wider with every frame. The footage ended abruptly when the camera cracked. Julian was found 2 weeks later in his motel room, alone. His cameras and recorders had been abandoned in the Wren house, but none of the footage survived. The drives were wiped clean, melted as though exposed to fire. He had filled a single notebook before he died. The last page read, "It isn't inside the walls. The walls are inside it. The house is just the skin. We are what it breathes in." The Wren house still waits. Locals say the walls look fatter now, as though something inside them has been feeding. Some nights, if you stand on the road and stay very quiet, you can see the pale outline of hands pressing against the upstairs window, leaving no prints behind.